Hello everybody and welcome to Storm Reads, and today I thought I would do sort of a mid-month wrap-up. I read and listen to so many books sometimes that it's just really hard for me to remember a lot of what I read from the beginning of the month, so I thought maybe this would be an easier way to talk about some of the books that I read during the month. We're going to give it a try and see if I prefer to do 2 wrap-ups in the month instead of 1 long wrap-up. Hopefully I like it. I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. Anyway, I'm just going... I don't know if these are really in like the order that I read them, but it's going to be in the order that I wrote them down in my book that I have everything written down in. So we're just going to go with that. And so the first one is Sadie by Courtney Summers, and I read this for Becca's Bookopoly-thon and for Monster-a-thon because I needed to read a book that Becca recommended because that's what I landed on, and I needed a mystery for the Monster-a-thon, and so I went ahead with this one. And this is about Sadie, who is trying to find the guy who is responsible for killing her sister. And she has a certain amount of little clues that she has, and so she's trying to figure things out. She has no clue that while she's doing that, there is a guy who has a podcast, and his name is West, and he has been contacted by, I believe it's the grandmother of Sadie, and wants him to try to look into what happened to Sadie because she's missing, obviously, and she's wanting to know, where she is and what she's doing. And so you get the point of view of Sadie and her quest, and you get the point of view of the podcast and that guy and what he's doing. And it was okay. I enjoyed it. I don't think it was as great as all the hype that it got whenever it first came out, but I did enjoy it, and I gave it 3 stars. And I really liked Sadie, the character, and everything. And so, yeah, it was a pretty good mystery. The only thing I didn't like is the ending, and I don't like how it ended, and so that kind of lowered it down for me a little bit too. But yeah, 3 stars. And so the next one is Girl Unframed by Deb Coletti, and I got this for review from the publisher, and I think it's Simon & Schuster. And I was really hoping to like this one, but I think they told me that it was kind of like going to be a mystery, and it really wasn't. It's a YA contemporary, and I thought it was going to be that with like more mystery elements than it really had in it. And this is about Sydney, who is telling the story about what happened to her one summer when she went to her mother's house. Her mother is a kind of like a superstar, or an aging superstar, you would say. She's not really as popular as she was, but she's still just trying to live the lifestyle. And she is with a guy who is not a good person. It's a very toxic relationship. And Sydney is just turned 16, and so it's kind of like a coming of age type story, and she is kind of learning about her body image and how to go about them kind of things. She's very pretty, and there are guys that are like catcalling and things, and are, some people think she's older than what she is because of how she looks. And she's got the superstar mother, and she meets a really nice guy. And so she's just kind of dealing with all of that, plus telling the story about what happened when she went there. And so, I mean, I knew something bad probably had happened towards the end, but I was kind of curious. But at the same time, I wasn't very curious. And I will say I was a little surprised at how it ended, but at the same time, it still just wasn't all that great, and I just didn't like it. And so I gave it 2 stars. Next up is probably my favorite book that I've read so far this month, and this is Whispering Pines by Heidi Lang and Katie Barkowski. I don't know why I can't say that. Anyway, this is a middle grade horror, and it was super creepy and a lot of fun, and this one's sticking with me. I just can't, I want to tell everybody about it, and so I figured that, might as well gush a little bit more about it. And this is about Ray, who moves to a new town with her sister and her mother after the disappearance of her father. There's a lot of things being said about what happened to her father, like he ran off with somebody he worked with and all those things. But Ray knows the truth. She knows that he is being silenced because of something that he's seen. And when she tried to tell people about it, like her best friend, at least she thought it was her best friend back then, they all just make fun of her and everything. And so she's going to view this new place as a place that she can go and make new friends and start over and try not to be estranged. And that doesn't happen very well, because in Whispering Pines everything is strange. The schools don't allow you to have chalk because of certain things that could happen. There are kids that are being taken and they come back and they have no eyeballs. There's weird things in the woods. It's just a really creepy place to live, and everybody seems to just kind of think it's kind of normal, I guess. I mean, they have a thing called like Code Yellow, which means a kid has gone missing. And she meets her next door neighbor. I think his name was Caden, and he's even strange too, because like she tried to wave at him, and he ignored her, and he was putting salt around his house. I mean, come on, that's the first impression she gets of this place. It's a little weird. And so she does meet a girl, and her name was Brandy, and she thought, oh, I'm going to make this new friend Brandy, but then Brandy ends up being one of the ones that goes missing, and so she's trying to figure out what happens to Brandy, and she makes friends with Caden, even though he's kind of weird and strange, because his brother had went missing previously, and everybody thinks that he killed his brother, and he didn't, and he's the only one that knows exactly what happened to his brother. And I can't say because spoilers. And so they kind of get together and try to investigate. And also another girl that she meets, her name was Vivian, I believe. And she kind of helps them a little bit too. She has a few secrets of her own. She carries this big backpack around with her and won't say what's in it. And so, I mean, it's just a weird, strange little town. But I really liked it. It was super creepy. It does say that it's like X-Files meets Stranger Things, and I really think that was a really good description of this, because it's like a junior X-Files, and it is with a group of friends and some really strange things going on, so I get the Stranger Things vibes. I also thought it reminded me a little bit of Jeepers Creepers, because there was like the part where she comes, there's a part where like Brandy and she's missing the eyeballs, and it's super creepy, and even she has no eyeballs, she's like, you have lovely eyes. It was super creepy. For a kid's book, I thought it was like super duper creepy. And so, I mean, if you have kids and you know they like spooky things, just make sure their spook level and how scary they can handle what they can handle, because it does have some really creepy things in it. I thought it was awesome, and I gave it 5 stars, but it does have some creepy elements, and so I just want you to know that, just to know that the level of tolerance that your kids can take. I think this would be good for like maybe a higher middle grade age, or even a young teen and stuff. It was really cool, and I really liked it. The next one I have is an audiobook that I listened to because of, there's a Facebook group that I'm in, and it's called the TBR and Beyond group, and they decided to make a Beyond Horror group, which is dedicated to horror. And the first book that they were going to be reading was Into the Drowning Deep, and I knew there was like a little prequel novella, and so I decided to read it, and it's called Rolling in the Deep by Myra Grant, and I will put a picture here because I didn't download it onto my Kindle, and it was okay. I mean, it's just a prequel, and so it was just kind of letting you know. In the book, which I also read, which is called Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Grant, excuse me, it takes place after what happens in that little short story, and so it kind of lets you know what happened, and that's why it's like a little prequel. And it's about these scientists and everything who wanted to try to find mermaids, and it's like a reality show, and they go to the Mariana Trench and into the Challenger Deep part and everything, and some things bad happen and none of them make it back alive. They find the place, you know, it was the ship was still there, but like nobody was there. And so it's a little prequel and everything. It just kind of lets you know like what happened. And in the Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Grant, which is the first in the series, or at least I thought it was supposed to be a series, but that was from 2017, I believe, and she hasn't ever made another one, so I don't know. But it says it's a series. So, but Into the Drowning Deep, it's about the sister and Victoria, I think her name. I think it's Tori. And she's a scientist too, and she wants to know what happened to her sister and the crew on that. And so it's about her and another group that get together to go and try to find out, because they know they saw something. They've seen videos of it. They know there are some mermaids, the killer mermaids or whatever, and they want to make their deaths not be in vain or whatever. And so they decide to go and everything, and things don't happen quite as good as they thought it was going to happen. And it was okay. I like the killer mermaid aspects and everything, but there were just some certain things in the book that I just wasn't too keen on. And so I gave the prequel a 3-star, and I gave the actual book Into the Drowning Deep 3 stars. Then I also have The Remaking by Chad McLeod Chapman, and this book was for the Becca's Bookopoly-a-thon and Monster-a-thon again, and this one was for a friend recommendation that I got on Becca's Bookopoly-a-thon, and a recommendation from a friend on the Monster-a-thon. And my friend Barb, she recommended this to me. We do a lot of buddy reading and things together, and so I've probably mentioned her before. And she was curious about what I'd think of this because she really liked it, and I can say that she liked it a whole lot more than I did. But that's okay. I gave this 2 stars. It's about a girl, Amber, and it's also about a witch story about these two, a mother and daughter witch. And it has 4 different sections to it. Like the first section is from like the 1950s, and it's the story that's being told around like a campfire about the mother and daughter that were witches and everything, and what happened to them and how they were burned alive. And the girl, they were separated, and the girl was buried in like a cement tomb and everything, with a bunch of crosses all around her grave and everything. And so there's a ghost story about that. And then in the 1970s, one of the guys that was younger then, I guess like a kid probably, he just couldn't ever get it out of his head. He wanted to do a story about that mother and daughter. And so he makes a horror movie called Don't Tread on Jessica's Grave. And then that's about Amber, who is going to be starring as the girl Jessica in the movie. And she had a supernatural thing happen to her on set. And now she just, it's kind of went like her whole life, and it's about how that affected her. And in 1995, I believe it is, they make a remake of the Don't Tread on Jessica's Grave, and they want Amber to now play the mother. And yeah, things happen, and then it goes to like 2016, and there's a podcast, and yeah, I don't know. I just didn't like Amber, and I didn't really care for it. I think the best part was the podcast at the end. That was my favorite part of the whole thing. And so it's kind of shiny. And so I gave this 2 stars. And then me and my friend Barb, we do a buddy read of a series every year. We try to do certain series, and we've been buddy reading the Parasol Protectorate series by never can say her name right. Gail Carringer, and this is the last one in that series, and it's called Timeless. And this was a fun wrap up to the series. There's only 5 books in the series, and in this one, Alexia and her husband Lord Macon and Ivy, all the gang, end up going to Egypt and trying to solve a mystery there about what happened. And it was fun. It was cute. I gave it 4 stars. Some of the things that happened at the very end, and I can't really talk a whole lot about it because it is the end of the series, but some of the things that ended just was a little too unrealistic, I guess. I don't know. It was just kind of like, oh, that's what they're gonna do, but that's okay. I still liked it, and I still gave it 4 stars. And the last book I have to talk about is Adam Cesar's Clown in a Cornfield. I just love the cover. This one was okay. There were some things that I didn't like, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. And it's a kind of slasher horror. It's supposed to be a young adult horror, but I think it's more adult than young adult. But I do see some of the young adult plot lines in it, I guess. But the violence and gore that's in it, I think, is a little bit more intense and adult than most of the young adult horror that I've ever read. Unless we're having a shift in how they're going to be doing young adult horror nowadays. But this is about Quinn, who something happened to her mother and they just needed a fresh start. So her and her father moved to this small town called Kettle Springs, Missouri, which is really cool because I don't get a lot of things in Missouri. Yay! And while they're there, there's this like bubbling over of things happening within the town between the younger generation and the older generation, and she ends up getting in the middle of that and not really meaning to, but it just sort of happens. Our first day of school, she gets thrown into detention with the cool kids because she giggled at what the teacher was saying or whatever. And so yeah, she kind of gets thrown in with the crowd whether she wanted to or not, and they have a party in this cornfield, and this clown, which is like the mascot of the town, his name's Friendo. There's a clown that comes out there and starts just kind of picking them off one by one with a crossbow, and then a lot of other things happen, and then you've got decapitations, and you've got axes, and you've got hatchets and knives, and I mean all kinds of stuff happens, and I mean it was really brutal. So that's why I'm saying that it's more adult, I think. But just so you know, going into it, if you're not fond of that kind of stuff, then I wouldn't read it. But if you're okay with that and you want a good creepy horror story, then, and that was fun, then, you know, you can check this out. I think there are some things that kept it from being like a 4-star. I gave it 3 stars, and that's because just some of the stuff in it made me think that it was like stereotyping small towns and the older generation. Just, I don't know, the reason, it wasn't a good enough reason for what happened in the town. I don't know, it was a little far-fetched. And at about 60% into it, it kind of changes from a slasher to something else, which actually kind of reminds me of a young adult plot point, and so that's why I said some of the plot points I thought was a little bit young adult. But overall, it was fun, and I liked it, so I gave it 3 stars. And so those are some of the things that I have read, and I thought maybe I'd just mention a couple things that I'm currently reading. I'm almost done with, but didn't quite get it finished so that I could talk about it yet. And that is Hunter Sheas' Misfits, and this has been a lot of fun. It's about the Melonheads kind of folklore, and it's set in Connecticut, and it's in the 90s, so it's got this grunge thing going on, and it's about some teens that are like, I don't know, potheads and stuff, and something happens to one of them, and they want to get revenge on that person, and so they are going to go and take it and put him in the woods and leave him there for the Melonheads. but something happens and they do something that they weren't supposed to, and now it's kind of unleashed the melon heads on them and the town and people they know, and it's been a pretty wild ride. I'm about 70-something% into it, so I'm almost done, and so I will probably be finishing this one up soon, and I'm curious to see how it ends and who lives and who dies. I am almost finished with Murder at Queen's Landing by Andrea Penrose. This is the 4th book, I believe, in the Rexford and Sloane series. It's also one of my favorite historical mysteries. This one is about some friends of Rexford and Sloane's, and they are kind of in trouble and they disappear. And so it's kind of like, how well do you trust your friends? Can you believe what they're saying? Are they telling you the truth, or are they lying? And stuff like that. And the Earl of Rexford and Charlotte Sloane, they are friends, and they are not like romantically involved, but they kind of want to be, but they kind of don't, because of some of the things that are happening. It's just better if they're friends right now, kind of things. And some of the things going on in the book, it's kind of putting them against each other, because, you know, when you have friends involved, you know, that can kind of mess things up. And so I'm almost done with this one. I'm listening to it, and I think I have like 2 hours left. So yeah, I'm really liking it, but I knew I would, because I like all the books in this series so far. And those are the books that I'm currently reading. And then what I think is going to be up next is Nine of the Mannequin by Stephen Graham Jones. I'm a little leery about this, but I'm curious about it at the same time, because I didn't like The Only Good Indians, and so I'm hoping I'm going to like this one. But it's short. It's like 140 pages or something like that. It's just a novella, so hopefully I like this one a lot better. It's about a prank gone wrong, so we'll see what happens. And I'm hoping to get this graphic novel in called The Fantastic Tales of Nothing. And it's by Alejandro Green and Fanny Rodriguez. And I don't remember anything about what it's about, but I like it. I like the looks of it. And it's for A Touch of Whimsy's a readathon, which is supposed to read a book that has aesthetically pleasing. And I think this one's very pretty, so read that. And some other things, I just don't know exactly, but we'll see how it goes. I am a little behind on my readathons, because I had the 3 readathons, and I also put some books in there that weren't on the readathon that I read because I wanted to, and so that's kind of how it happens. So I always plan to read things for the readathon, and then I'm a mood reader and things change. So that's how it is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.